Confederation of Energy Regulators under our Women in Energy initiative. It is our second webinar in this year's Women in Energy e-mentoring program. The first was held March 8th, 2018, and is recorded and available on the Women in Energy website. I'm very happy to be presenting today and moderating because I've been a mentor and mentee since 2013, every year since then. It's very important for me to be part of a mentee-mentor program. As a state energy regulator since June 2013, and someone who's been working in the energy field in some capacity for most of my professional career, I've seen firsthand women in the energy regulatory sector at all levels immersed in doing something that makes a real difference. Women are empowered to courageously and meaningfully step up and face both opportunities and challenges in the energy sector. Women can lead the way and are leading the way and are dedicated to ensuring our regulations continue to responsibly evolve and adapt, and we never lose sight of our most important mission, that is reliable and affordable service with a focus on safety, the environment, and the public. Today's webinar is intended to showcase more mentor-mentee relationships and will give us a glimpse behind the curtain of how it's done in other mentoring relationships. This will be an opportunity for us to discuss that and be open to listening to questions and feedback so that we can help those who are considering whether or not to be in a mentee-mentor relationship or whether they want to get more out of that. First, we have a mentee and a mentor. First, we're going to turn to Chloe Hazelton, who's a policy analyst at AER in Australia. She is someone who has given a lot in this and can talk to us about the relationship that she's experienced in the mentor-mentee world recently. Chloe?
Hello, thank you, Diane. Thank you for inviting me to participate and I guess to Women in Energy for the opportunity I've had to have Anna Gret as such an experienced mentor in energy market regulation. So I'm one half of a pair, and I work for the Australian Energy Regulator, and my mentor works in Germany as in international relations for the German regulator. So my role, just a little bit about me and sort of how I've experienced this relationship. My role at the Australian Energy Regulator is both as an economist, analysing behaviour and outcomes in the wholesale electricity market, as well as a member of my team's leadership, where I have a focus on planning and project management. So in my meetings with Anna Gret, we have had pretty natural and free-flowing conversations, usually about what we're up to at work on a daily basis, as well as discussing challenges that we are facing. What's been beneficial to me is that Anna Gret has shared her wisdom on how I can help to motivate my colleagues to follow a project management approach to our work. It's something that other people probably experience, is that sometimes people are inclined to think of project planning as a waste of time and they'd rather start real work. But I've been attempting to integrate advice that I've had from Anna Gret about sort of motivating my colleagues and have had it into the work. And I've discussed my approach with my manager as well. So it's good to have an outside perspective on challenges I face. And it's really good to have somebody that's not directly part of my team be able to help me sort of understand my challenges and have usually experienced these things themselves. And yeah, another thing that I really have enjoyed about the relationship is that we've just discussed similarities and differences between the Australian and German energy markets, which is just a really fascinating place to think about. And there's lots of similarities, which is always nice to find. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask, following each of the speakers, we will answer and discuss questions from the audience and hear any additional comments the speakers wish to offer. We'll also have time at the end of the presentations for additional audience questions and discussion among the speakers. Now, at any time during the webinar, you can send a question by writing it in the chat section of your screen, and we'll discuss as many of your questions as time permits in this 1-hour webinar. We want this webinar to be informative for you, so please feel free to provide your questions so that we can ask the speakers. As a reminder, the webinar is also going to be recorded and will be available on the Women in Energy section of the ICER website within a few days. And if you missed something or wish to refer a colleague to listen to it, you can do so at that time. I do know that we have Colette Honorable on the phone. I do think there might be a technical glitch right now, making sure that she is on. I know that she is. I'm going to ask the host to check so that we can turn it over to Colette right now. Okay. Is the host aware? Can you put Colette into the panel now? She is on the line.
Okay, we will do it.
Okay, great. In the meantime, Chloe, were you, when you decided to become part of the mentee-mentor relationship, did you have any hesitation?
No, my hesitation probably was where I would find a partner and whether it being an international arrangement, how easy it would be to engage in the relationship, because I am participating in this at 1:15 in the morning here. So, but I thought that in terms of my professional development, that having a mentor was a good thing to do, and I had been experienced to the ideas of it in some of my further education and in sort of my training through work as well, that we were encouraged to have mentoring relationships where possible, and also just to do peer-to-peer coaching as well to help people when they were looking for advice. So I thought that it would be a fantastic opportunity to hear from someone that worked in a different environment to me.
Wonderful. I believe that now Colette is on. Colette, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. I'm going to turn it over to you as our experienced mentor. Colette Honorable is a partner at Reed Smith, and she is a former state regulator as well as a federal regulator. So, Colette?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Berman, and greetings, everyone. Good morning to some, good evening to others. Thank you all for making the time. I think that technology on my end is not cooperating, but where there's a will, there's a way. I'm delighted to participate in this webinar focused on women in energy, mentors and mentees, and what we have learned this year. And I'm especially grateful to you, Commissioner Berman, to the International Confederation on Energy Regulators, to regulators and those serving as mentors and mentees from all over the globe. It's really a delight to join you today to focus on lessons learned as we continue to ensure that this program is successful. It's been an honor to participate, having helped stand this effort up now, I believe, in its 4th year. And Commissioner Berman, we're especially grateful to you and to our Peruvian friends. I see you on the screen. So what I've learned, there are a few things that I've learned this year as a mentor. And I've had mentees now from all over the globe. Mentees in Egypt, Turkey, Canada, and now a mentee, Azima Akram, here from Illinois in the U.S. And it's unfortunate that she couldn't join. I'm not sure if you know of our weather. We've had a lot of plane cancellations, and so her travel was interrupted. But certainly a few things that I've learned I've enjoyed very much getting to know Azima. She is energetic, she is ambitious, and she's a very positive person, and I look forward to our continued working relationship formally and informally. One thing I've had to be better at is communicating in ways that mentees prefer best. So for Azima and I, and it could be in part due to our schedules, we're both very busy, it's been by text, which I admit I'm not the best at doing that most frequently because we all have a lot of pings from different sources, emails, telephone calls, and then personal matters, and then to factor in another way. But I was committed to it in order to support Azima and in order to send her a note during the day to let her know I was thinking about her, or to chat when maybe we couldn't visit over the phone at that moment. But we also worked, the second thing I had to be focused on is a way to be creative in making a connection. So for Azima and I, we have had conference calls, we've chatted electronically, and there's been one instance when I was in town in Chicago on business. I'm resident in the Washington, D.C. office. I'm a partner at Reed Smith. And so I popped in on her, and we had lunch in Chicago. So she could just walk right down the street. We could connect. It gave me an opportunity to learn more about her. The last thing I would say that I've learned most this year is to be a good listener. And in listening to Azima, I've learned so much about who she is and what she aspires to be. I think she's already very successful. But to listen to her and to be supportive of her in the ways that she needs to be supported. And I think as mentors, that's very important, that we should not strive to make our mentees like us, to give them advice so that they go down our same path, but to be disciplined in listening and supporting them in the path that they choose. And finally, I also, the final thing that I learned is that every bit of encouragement helps. No matter where you are in your journey, sometimes hearing yourself speaking about your vision and your goals to someone else, but also hearing someone else reflect what they see about you is very powerful. And I don't think we do that enough in encouraging one another. So with that, I'll pause, and at the appropriate time, Azima has sent along some of her takeaways that I'd like to share at the appropriate time.
I think that's really very helpful, Colette. One of the things that I realized as a mentor is that each relationship is a little different. If you are in the same state, you might have an opportunity to see them more in person. But if you are looking at it, someone on a national or international level, you may only have the ability to communicate at either set times or through text or email when you can find the right time. So the interesting thing is also making sure that people are comfortable with the communication and at the outset talking about the different forms of communication. I found myself as a mentor who generally was always uncomfortable with talking on the phone, that it actually helped me to work through the relationship, knowing that many times we would be talking just on the phone, but having to figure out how to get the most out of it so that it was beneficial to the mentee. I will say that one of the challenges is making sure that everyone does the work so that the mentee and mentor are prepared for the work that has to be done, and looking carefully at what are the particular tasks and challenges that the mentee wants to get out of the relationship. Chloe, do you have any specific thoughts on what's the best advice that you can give when the relationship is first starting to either the mentee or the mentor on how to develop that relationship?
I think just come to it with that positive mindset. I think if you've signed up to this relationship, to be committed to it and to really engage with the opportunity that you've got. I found, because Annegret and I don't have much in common otherwise, that when establishing our relationship and getting to know each other, it just started with a phone call that we'd planned. Annegret phoned me at the time we said, so we were on time, and we were sort of both committed to making sure it worked. And our relationship developed just from talking about what we had in common and finding lots of common ground, which I think made us feel really comfortable with each other, so that then you could take the next step, which might be asking for advice. So that once you had that foundation in common ground with each other, then you felt like you could sort of broach things that were more challenging or that you weren't really sure about.
Great, thank you. I think that's really helpful also, is thinking about not seeing your mentor or your mentee having to be a clone of yourself, so that even if you don't see the commonalities, it actually helps you to get out of your comfort zone and get a perspective from someone who may not be completely in sync with you, and that actually can be helpful. We do have a question, Colette. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how the program can be improved, whether it needs more structure, or if there are other things that you can see as helpful to the mentee-mentor relationship.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner Berman. There are some ways in which I think we can improve this effort. I think the fact that it's in its fourth year is really a testament to the success of the effort across the globe. And I have to single out Una Shortle with Sear for all of her work in kind of behind the scenes. If you work with the Women in Energy effort, you know her quite well, and she's a huge part of the success of it. But I think we have to continue to be committed to it. I don't believe there's been a shortage of mentees. We do need more mentors to step up, and men and women can serve. I was in Belize recently for the meeting of the Caribbean regulators, and there were men and women in the room who were very proud to serve as mentors. It was a beautiful thing to see, and we discussed it during a panel focused on women in utility regulation. We need more people. No matter how busy you are, no matter how much you have on your plate, we can all make time to support women in this sector. It's important, and to say it's important is an understatement, really, because we know that someone helped us along our journey, and people continue to help us. Each of us participating on this call has someone that we can point to as a mentor, as a champion, as a sponsor. We also have put into place guidelines over the years, such as, to begin with, it is the mentor's responsibility to contact the mentee. I've worked with other groups where it was the converse, but this is an important first step for mentors to demonstrate their interest and enthusiasm to serve as a mentor for someone who is interested in advancing in her career. Yes, finally, I do think it would be great to have maybe quarterly objectives. I think even if it's something as simple as setting goals at the outset, and that also manages expectations for the mentor-mentee relationship. But even minor things such as setting up a webinar or talking via Skype. And that way you get acquainted personally. You get to meet the person personally. I would also put a couple of others on the table that are different. One, look for ways to connect in person. In the energy sector, we have so many opportunities to see one another around the globe. I've seen Una probably every year and only once in Europe. And so it's important that we all work hard to connect however we can. So for me, it may be a meeting of the World Forum on Energy Regulation or the CANPUT meeting, the meeting of Canadian regulators. Whatever the objective is for you and where you can meet. It could be even a trip that the mentor may plan to where the mentee resides, or the mentee may have an opportunity to travel to your destination for business or personal travel. The last suggestion that I would make is to find a book to read together. One book that I enjoy with my mentees is a book on executive presence, and it is a quick read. The author is Sylvia Ann Hewitt, and it helps all of us think about ways in which we can put our best foot forward, so to speak. But I gift it to my mentees to help them along their personal journeys, and it also gives us some great topics to discuss when we plan our calls, and I just sent Azima one recently, so I look forward to visiting with her about it. But those are just a few suggestions.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I really like the idea of reading a book together because it can help talk about different things in the relationship and also have an ability to communicate from some other forum rather than just the both of you. Your mentee, who wasn't able to be on the call today due to the weather, did send along some of her thoughts on what she felt as a mentee was helpful to her and might be helpful. Would you like to share them?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I would. And Azima is so organized and thoughtful, and she sent this note quite late when she realized that her travel wouldn't cooperate. And she sent along 3 terrific pointers for mentees, but I also suggest them for mentors as well. Azima's first tip or suggestion is that mentees conduct a self-assessment. She wrote, "To get the most out of a mentoring relationship, I find it valuable to assess where you, the mentee, are in your career, where you want to go, what you're passionate about, and what you need or want to learn. It's not necessary to have complete answers to all of these questions, but spending time thinking about them will help you and your mentor understand how your mentor can best help you." And I thought that was a terrific one. I think as a mentor, we can take that to heart as well in order to think about how we will best support the mentee. After all, it's all about the mentee. It's not about the mentor. Azima's second point is to communicate clearly. She wrote, "Getting on the same page as your mentor about frequency and method of contact is an important first step. During meetings, it is also important to communicate clearly to your mentor how they can help you. Is it making time to discuss how to deal with a certain type of situation at work? Is it getting insight on how your mentor accomplished something in his or her career that you aspire to? Or is it getting introduced to someone that your mentor can connect you with?" And I think all of those are great points, because when I think back over times when I've served as a mentor, we've touched on all of those sorts of things, and mentors can be an excellent connector. Once I had a mentee in Canada, and I helped my mentee get an introduction with someone that I knew from the regulatory world. And also there are times when I've had a mentee to ask me about my journey. And I would caution here that it's really not a time to tell your war stories and go on and on about yourself, but to really share experiences that may prove to be lessons for your mentee, not so much to brag about yourself, if I might politely suggest. Azima's final comment is to keep an open mind. Azima wrote, "For me, one of the most exciting things about my WE mentor is listening to her perspective and feedback during our meetings. Keeping an open mind and staying receptive to ideas or suggestions you had not thought of or that put you out of your comfort zone can help you walk through doors that you may not have otherwise." And I appreciate Azima's thoughts. Thank you.
I think that's really helpful. I think one of the things that I listening to both you and Chloe is two of the things that sort of come to mind from a group summary perspective is, one, not to be afraid to have a mentor who's younger than you, looks or acts different than you, thinks differently than you, and isn't necessarily the same gender as you. And then the other is to get out of your comfort zone and seek out a mentor who's going to challenge you to be the better self that you want to be, someone who isn't afraid to ask you tough questions, can give you real constructive feedback, both positive and negative, and help you explore going back to that self-assessment that Azima talked about, and looking at what is it that you need to get a lot out of the mentor relationship. Chloe, I wonder if you have any thoughts on the personal style and working through, the mentor and mentee relationship in looking at some of those self-assessments for yourself as a mentee.
That's not something that Annegret and I have discussed. I think our relationship has, rather than focusing on sort of bigger ideas of general personal development, or it's been a little bit about career goals. She's very experienced and has worked in the sector for a very long time. I have not worked. I've been a public servant for a long time, but I've not worked in energy regulation for very long. So we've tended to focus on short-term goals, or upcoming sort of issues that I've been facing, and kind of the day-to-day work and how we both manage the things that weigh on us, rather than sort of that long-term assessment of where do I want to go with my career, or what sort of leader or manager do I want to be. We haven't at this stage got to thinking about those kind of levels, but I just thought the idea of reading a book together, but I was thinking even interesting shorter pieces of text like blog posts or interesting articles, that would be a great way to open our relationship up to thinking about those kind of broader topics to develop, I guess, both of our careers.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And one of the issues that I always struggle with is asking folks about what it is that they see as their 5 best traits in their job, what they're good at, what they bring to the table, and then also their 5 areas of weakness that they perceive as a weakness, or that others may perceive. And that helps sort of setting the table in looking at some areas to work on, but also challenging them if they see something as a weakness that maybe others don't see, and why they see that is a weakness rather than a strength, and work through that, and how they may want to improve, or that they need to take stock of the fact that they can be happy with who they are. Often we doubt ourselves, and so it's a matter of working through those different types of things that we're uncomfortable with. Colette, is there anything that if you looked at your younger self, you would do differently now that would have helped you earlier to get to where you are?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. It's a great one, and I think if I'm honest with myself, the one thing I would have done differently would be to be confident in myself. When I was younger, it was because of someone else's urging or support that I became confident and ultimately saw what other people saw in me, not in the first instance. And so that's one thing I work on with younger women. And quite honestly, even if they're not young, women who are changing career paths, I think Chloe spoke about that being newer in her work, but also women at all stages in their career. Women all over the globe are challenged in this regard. And so I think as a mentor, whether you're a man or a woman, one of the greatest things we can do is instill confidence and help our mentees to exert themselves more and to be confident in themselves first.
That's great. Thank you very much. Is there anything in terms of discussing confidentiality? I know for me as a mentor, one of the first conversations we have is generally around confidentiality, understanding what situations that may come up. The mentee may not want folks to know that they're in a formal mentee-mentor relationship, and working through those concerns so that the mentee can feel comfortable sharing and being honest in the relationship. Have you, either Chloe or Colette, have you experienced any conversations on confidentiality that may be helpful?
With undergrad and I, we've, I guess all our relationships taken place over the phone. What has been beneficial, it would usually be, I think, in terms of what I'm working on, and sometimes what you're working on hasn't been published yet, so you're still in the process of, making a decision, tossing up whether you think an idea you have is the right path to go down. This is in terms of like technical work. And so in that respect, it's actually been beneficial to have a mentor who is in a totally different country, who is in no way going to be particularly worried about outcomes in the Australian energy market, just as I, don't need to worry about anything that she tells me about international relationships with other European countries and how she, deals with that. I have no connection to that. So that's a real benefit of being in an international relationship, because we, in terms of technical work that we're working on, there's not much to worry about in terms of us talking to anybody else that's going to know anything.
Mm-hmm. And Colette, have you experienced that?
Thank you for asking this question, Commissioner, because it is something I recommend to mentors to include in the initial conversation. Because this work is global, energy is global, and I have known, except for one mentee relationship, I've known someone at every one of my mentees' organizations, and in fact I've known several people. But I make a point to state at the beginning that what we talk about will not be shared with anyone, and most certainly not with people that they work with. That will give them the freedom to communicate with us about discrete matters, about challenges. One mentee asked me about how to resolve a matter with a supervisor that she didn't feel was very supportive of her. And then one mentee had a newer supervisor that may have felt a little threatened because that supervisor was less experienced. And I just tried to give her some tips about how to navigate that and how to communicate well and to demonstrate support for the supervisor. So it's very important, and it's important because the mentee is very cognizant that we have been regulators and that we are, in some instances, continuing to serve with the folks that they are working very closely with. So we need to make sure that we support and create safe boundaries and confidential ones that will support very strong and robust relationships.
I think that's very helpful. Thank you. One of the things that I tend to do with mentees is giving specific examples. If we are working, whether it's in the same agency or in an environment where we will see each other a lot, is to work through what exactly it means from a confidentiality perspective. So even in terms of greeting each other at a conference or at a meeting, that it, the comfort level for the mentee, if I greet them, and how that would be, because they might not want anyone to know that they are in that mentor relationship with me, but also sharing, specific things. If they share something with me, and I may hear about it from someone else, like, for example, if a supervisor is going to be retiring or giving birth or something, the information may not necessarily be confidential, but having heard about it through the mentee would reveal the mentor-mentee relationship. So I wouldn't share knowledge that I had solely from that relationship, and would wait for the information to be shared in some other way. And I think working through that also helps the mentee feel more comfortable in specific examples. But what I will say I think is helpful is for the mentee to speak up anytime the mentee is uncomfortable or has further clarifying questions, whether it's on confidentiality or whether it's on specific feedback or advice. The more questions they can ask to help them in putting some of the advice into play would be very helpful to them. It's not necessarily important that you have someone who's an expert in your field, but someone that can help you in working through your situation, I think, is very helpful. Is there something, either Chloe or Colette, that you have looked at that is best in helping to encourage innovative ideas or taking a step towards taking some of your advice that has worked? Is it specific examples or maybe just some general overview?
Sorry, will you ask your question again, please?
So is there something that you can talk about specifically that has helped in encouraging the mentee to think outside the box, encouraging some innovative thinking, or doing things that they wouldn't normally do that has helped them get out of that comfort zone and actually take some of your advice?
Oh, that's a terrific question, because when Azima and I just had lunch together in Chicago recently, we spoke about some of those sorts of strategies, as Azima is really thoughtful about what her future looks like, what she's great at doing, and we spoke about getting outside of your comfort zone and networking in places in groups that may field her interests more specifically. Mm-hmm. So there may not be as many people that she would know, for instance, as with NARUC. But by going to those conferences, by participating in a certain bar association event, she'll get better acquainted with individuals in that space, and that could be very helpful for her. We also spoke about leaning in substantively, and that means while it's important to attend events, it's important to, yes, support events, help organize them, moderate them, really put yourself out there in terms of the substance of the work. Volunteer to be a speaker, volunteer to write a blog post or an op-ed piece, and really challenge herself in that way as well to set herself apart from her peers, and also demonstrate her passion and her earnest in this regard as well.
That's wonderful. Chloe, I know that Annegret shared some of her wisdom with you on motivating your colleagues in a project management approach, and you were looking at some of the ways to do that. Can you give a little bit of your experience in terms of working through that project management approach and project planning that maybe you hadn't done before, but with Annegret helped you?
Yes. So I think Annegret really encouraged me, and I did seek advice from some other sources as well. But one of the things that I think she encouraged me was to try and break things down a bit more for people. I think I thought about a project and trying to plan until the end of the year, until the end of the project, and that was too long a period for my colleagues and team members to really grasp what was going on. They wanted to, they couldn't think that far in ahead, because it is really hard to plan that far in ahead. It's easy to plan what's happening next week, but it's harder, a month out, a year out, that kind of thing. And so she encouraged me to help them with sort of more short-term goals. And then a piece of great advice that I think I got from her was to help set up regular milestones, so that in the planning process that I then got a chance to say to people, great, you've done that, well done, let's celebrate that in some sort of way, or just acknowledge that people had reached certain steps and got there with them. And that was, I think my personal take was, let's just get on with it and keep going and push right through. But the advice to stop and to give people regular acknowledgement of where we're up to in a process, and especially in the planning stages, and saying, well, we've done a first cut of a plan. That's really great. Thank you, everybody. It's really good. It's looking great. And then move on, so that people, it just was a different a better way to motivate people that wasn't, I guess, not thinking about things in terms of my personal style. That's what I think I find challenging, probably other people find challenging, is that you can sometimes assume that what motivates you will motivate other people, but getting advice from my mentor and other people about, what motivates other people, and to have that perspective was good, because otherwise I'd just, kind of try to move on without giving other people the encouragement they needed.
I think that's very helpful. And what I like about it is that Annegret worked with you in that style that wasn't one that initially you were compatible with, but that helped looking through it, how it would work, and that it also then extended to not just you, but to your colleagues. So the mentor-mentee relationship, I do think, is one that while it's between you and the mentor or mentee, it also is focused on helping in the larger setting, which is why a mentor-mentee relationships, and the more that we can have, whether formal or informal, I think is very helpful. What's the best advice for you now that you've gone through this that you would give to someone who is looking at a formal mentee-mentor relationship?
My best advice would be to take the opportunity any opportunity that you can. I found that having somebody that, is completely different to where I've worked in a different setting to where I work. And also, I think to a degree, a little bit the anonymity that we don't cross paths with each other, that it can be a really frank and open relationship, because we don't have to worry that, oh, well, you work somewhere where I'm going to be applying for a job, or that, my agency deals with your agency. We didn't have that, and so it's really easy to have those conversations. And I really like travel. I really like meeting different people and hearing about different experiences, and so I personally find it very rewarding to have somebody that works somewhere else, and to hear from her. So I do hope that I'm traveling to Europe in January, and I hope that I'll have time to stop in and see her, to say hi in person.
Oh, that's wonderful. We're going to be wrapping it up in a minute, and I'll turn to both Chloe and Colette to give their closing remarks. I wonder if, Colette, you can talk a little bit about what it means to be a woman in energy today, and where you'd like to see more women focused in this area.
Thank you for the opportunity to offer the final comment here, as well as to acknowledge this incredible work. It's an incredible time to be a woman in the energy sector, and a very powerful time to be a woman in energy regulation. This is an incredible time globally in terms of the transformation we have seen across continents in the energy sector, from the generation mix and how it is developing to the integration of technology, renewables, and innovations we hadn't contemplated 10 years ago, to our market advances around the world, to our infrastructure development, and finally, and I think what is the most beautiful thing about this sector, the ways in which we have worked through these issues, opportunities, and challenges together, cooperatively. Learning from our colleagues around the world has been an important part of our success at home, I would suggest, respectfully. And so to be a woman in this sector, it's especially important now because of what we bring to the table in terms of helping to resolve challenges, working collaboratively and cooperatively with others, and ensuring that we all bring our best to the table each and every day has been really an honor, I think, for myself in my 10 years as a regulator, but also to support women in energy around the globe. Finally, to see the ways in which men have supported this effort too. We certainly couldn't do it without the support of our colleagues around the globe, and we're very grateful to you. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Saldana from Peru. Thank you for your leadership. It was wonderful to be with you in Belize as well, and thank you for convening this webinar. It is important, finally, that we continue to support efforts focused specifically on women, and to be unapologetic about that. We know as we look across the landscape, we don't have enough women in key leadership roles. We have lots of women in mid-management, middle leadership tiers, but we really need to do our part, as so many are in other sectors, in supporting roles of greater prominence for women in energy. And so I'm honored to play a small part of that. And Commissioner Berman, thank you for the example that you set, not only at home in New York with NARUC nationally, and also in the global context for the ways in which women can lead and lead well.
Wonderful. And Chloe, do you have any closing remarks?
I think I echo what Colette has said. One of the things I think I've benefited from this relationship, but also seeing the examples that I've heard today, is that it might be me, or it might be sort of a general feeling, is you're not feeling confident that you can do it, that you know what you're doing, and having the somebody else behind you to say, no, I think you've got this, you can do this, and it's worth trying. I mean, I've only worked in the sector for a couple of years now, and so always thinking that I don't know enough can really sort of knock you. But when people give you the feedback and say, no, you know what you know is right, and that you can go for it. So it's really good that to have somebody kind of in your corner encouraging you and saying, yes, you can do this, and what you know is correct. And that's I would say that the more that we can do that for each other, because I think we all have moments where we go, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm right, but having somebody going, no, yes, just stand up, go for it, have some confidence, and I guess fake it till you make it anyway. So it's a fantastic program, and I really will encourage people women I work with and meet to be part of the program as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I want to close by saying that over the years, I have had many mentors in my life, and I've been a mentor for others. And each experience was and is fulfilling to me. I do think that professional growth and happiness is similar to energy regulation. It is a continual process of learning and evolving, and to do so, one needs to be mindfully engaged in seeking to learn, adapt, change, and become better. And therefore, with each new mentoring experience, we're able to connect and grow. I want to thank our speakers today for sharing a little bit behind the scenes on a mentor-mentee relationship. I'd also like folks to know that they can consult the website via the ICER, the website, for more women in energy stories, and for this and other webinars. There's on a range of topics, regulatory and non-regulatory, on the website. ICER is on social media, so please engage and share with the Women in Energy Network. And thank you so much to our speakers again, and to our host for putting together this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. With that, I think we close. Goodbye, all.
Bye.